Okay, good afternoon. That's the 2 minutes past the hour, which the bell tolls that we're going to get started this afternoon. So a huge thank you once again to everybody for registering and attending the webinar and Q&A this afternoon with the CEO of Yomdel, who are the live chat pioneers in the property industry for you guys today. The duration of the Q&A and webinar, which will also always be the amount of questions that get posed, but I'm reckoning probably around 45 to 50 minutes today. So we've got today's agenda. Of course, we've got a live Q&A with Andy. Andy's the CEO of Yomdel, including a live poll so we can get you guys involved as well. We've got a video which is very, very kindly being produced by Jay Pope at Jacob Steele about the sentiment shift marketplace, and also we're going to take your questions in the room as well. So usual house rules and questions. Again, if you guys have done this webinar before, you'll know what's the rules by now. All webinar attendees are muted to avoid background noise and distractions, barking dogs, meowing cats, noisy kids, and of course the other half. Please use the questions option on the GoToWebinar. I will answer all the questions at the end of the presentation, but if you do pose a question to either myself or Andy, please do not click on the leave the webinar, otherwise I cannot respond to your question. You think I'm being rude, I'm obviously not rude. You may need to click on the orange expand button on your GoToWebinar control panel, which you can see is just here. I'm just circling my mouse over that there for you to open the questions option so you can type in a question today. So, okay, I'm going to just hand over to Andy just to introduce himself to you this afternoon. So, Mr. Soloman, the stage is yours.
Thanks very much, Dave, and it's really nice to be here today. So thank you very much. Many people may already know me, but I'm the founder and CEO of Yomdel. Yomdel is the market-leading provider of managed live chat services to estate agents and other sectors as well. So we have a really good view into different market segments. We're working with several thousand estate agents by account by office around the country, many of the major brands, and lots of regional and independent players as well. And today, I really just like to share some of my insights, the insights that we have from the extensive engagements we manage with customers of estate agents in the UK.
Super stuff. Thanks, Andy. Now, we've got some set questions, but please do you guys get involved. There's something on the tip of your tongue. Pop yourself onto the GoToWebinar control panel and please ask the questions. We want you guys to be involved. Right, to kick off, right, Andy, how do we define sentiment? And what is it? It's a word that I've certainly been using personally on the webinars over the last week, but what is it?
Sentiment is simply a measure of how someone is feeling, and in this instance we're thinking about the customer. And it's really interesting actually that if you think of yourself in your own business, and I'm a business owner and I'm sure many of you on this webinar are also business owners, but if you think of yourself as a business and you try to project that out to your customer, that's not going to resonate with your customer sentiment. It all starts from the point of view that the customer feels that they are the most important person in the world, and the world needs to revolve around them and their needs. Measuring sentiment is really, really important in terms of being able to project about how people are going to feel about something, and in turn then forecast how they're going to respond and react to a stimulus that's maybe put in front of them. It's a nebulous thing. It's not that easy to say sentiment is this, but essentially behavior is driven by sentiment. If someone's feeling good about something, or someone feels they have a need to do something, they're going to try to do it.
Okay, thank you for that. I mean I've spoken a couple of times about the mainstream media at the moment, talking about sentiment. I was reading something over lunch with Sky News. I think that a lot of the media at the moment, certainly when it comes to what's going on in the world, do look for a negative. And again, we've spoken about how you guys in the room, how you can drive positive sentiments in the in your own communication that you make to your customers. So why is sentiment an important indicator, Andy, in all of what's going on at the moment?
Well, let's face it. I mean, the last, where are we now? We're coming into the middle, incredibly, of 2020. But since mid 2016, when we had a certain referendum, there has been a tremendous amount of uncertainty in the marketplace, not just in the property market, but across the economy as a whole. People haven't really known what's going to happen and what's going to happen next, or how things are going to play out. We've now reached the moment of peak uncertainty, and uncertainty is a really big driver of sentiment. If people feel that everything is impossible and it's too much, they're just going to go squirrel away, and they're going to hide away. So really, it's our job to help educate people that things are going to be possible if they think about things in a particular way. And as estate agents, our view would be that, and any business for that matter, but our view would be that you need to review how you position your business in front of your customers in order to help inform the sentiment that they then start to project. If you project a message that it's not business as usual, of course it's not, but then all the shutters are pulled down, the doors are closed, and the lights are off, then people are going to go away and they're going to look somewhere else, or worse, they're just going to believe that nothing's actually possible. If you turn on the virtual lights and you seek ways to engage with people and look for the future post-lockdown, which will come, maybe not straight away. It's going to be a gradual staged process where things gradually loosen. They may tighten it up again at various moments as well. But those agents that are actively engaging with their potential customers, I believe, are the ones that are going to build rapport. They're going to build trust, and they're going to find customers who are going to be prepared to listen to them, and really they will turn to you as someone who will support them through some difficult decisions that they have to make, because after all, one of life's truisms is that at certain stages in certain parts of time, people need to move, and there's no one better to be able to help them do that than an estate agent. Of course, it may not be possible now, but it will be possible later on, and to varying degrees. And as part of that, agents, and again I stress this, I say agents, we're talking about estate agents here, but it's the same for every company really. It's time to reassess as to how you position yourselves in the eyes of your customer. What are your goals when it comes to serving your customer? Are you the person that they can turn to for some friendly advice? Or are you the person they just see as the person who collects the rent every month? You know, whatever the equivalent examples may be. The time now is to plan and to think about how you can reposition or indeed enhance your position in the eyes of your community and in the eyes of your market and your customers, so that when they're thinking about estate agent, they're not thinking about estate agent, they're thinking about you as a person or your brand. As something which can bring value and bring hope as well. Because one of the things that, if you mentioned all the bad news that's out there, Dave, and actually, if all you did was listen to the bad news, we'd all go in front of a tall building to jump off probably. There's actually an awful lot of good stuff that's going on at the moment. Times are really hard, money is really tight, jobs are getting scarcer. But there's an awful lot of good stuff that's going on in terms of how people are finding ways to pull together, to support each other. And you know, within your business, you can look for ways that you can make a difference and help inform that sentiment.
Yeah, completely agree. And I mean, we've seen some agents really remobilising their businesses over lockdown. And again, the good news stories. I mean, oddly, I think it was probably even before lockdown. I picked up with an agent, I think it was in North London, a story whereby they were helping out key workers, the NHS. It's a great opportunity to see how personal you are as a business and as a brand, and push that out. It's really important that you guys push that sentiment too. So now some really good points there. So
I would just say actually, your property is obviously it's a local business. There might be some of you on this webinar might be part of national brands, but ultimately it's a local business. It's local people moving from local houses. And many of the best agents already have very strong sort of corporate and social responsibility programs where they are supporting local organizations and charities and all the rest of it. And now is the time to look at, you might not be able to do a lot of those things. You can't necessarily sponsor the village fete because there won't be a village fete in June this year probably. But what are the other things that you can do? And also let your community know what you're doing. There's no harm in flagging up where you're trying to volunteer. You know, if members of your team are NHS emergency responders, for example, if you're helping out down the local food bank, whatever it may be, you know, just delivering food to an elderly neighbour, whatever it may be, flag it up. People like to hear these good news stories, and they like to hear about acts of human kindness.
Yeah, completely agree. And I mean, there's been some love. I mean, it was an agent down south in Surrey, and what they did, they collected stories from local business owners. I think it was a local butcher, I think it was a local fruit and veg shop, and basically put on their website a COVID-19 page where people could contact their local small businesses to get the fruit delivered and stuff like that. So I thought it was really good. You know, there's some great stuff going out there. You know, really.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I'd like to get you guys involved, as you well know from these webinars. So we've got our first poll of the afternoon. There was a slight spoiler of the question just before there. So we've got the first poll, and the first one is 1, 2, 3. Get your voting fingers ready. Are you receiving positive customer inquiries to sell, buy, rent, or let properties at the moment? A nice simple yes, no, or I am advising we are closed until lockdown. Now we've got some positive voting patterns coming already, which is good news. I'll give that another 10 seconds or so, just so I can get you all involved. I do like to get you guys involved with this. So thank you all for voting, it is appreciated. Okay. Interesting stuff, and good news actually, by the way, Andy. So are you receiving positive customer inquiries to sell, buy, rent, or let? A huge 92% are. So that's a really good indicator again that people are active. They are contacting you as estate and letting agents. That's really good news. We've got 5% in the room saying no, and 3% who have pressed the pause button and they're advising they are closed until after lockdown. So again, huge thank you to you guys for voting on that. Much appreciated. Okay, so Andy, you'll know, you and Simon have been on the webinars for a while now. We featured in the last 2 or 3 weeks the new data Yomdel has been producing again for the guys that are in the room who probably read property industry, Arnie Stange today. That's been brilliantly picked up on the media as well. Can you give me your overview analysis? And what I'll do as well, when Andy's speaking, I'm going to put the actual graph, again, you guys might have seen this before, on the screen, so Andy can talk us through that as well. Some really great and interesting stuff that we're seeing in the weeks over lockdown, and it is a positive story as well, which is great.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, if you could stick the graph up there, that would be terrific. But essentially, thank you very much. So if you've been reading Pi, you will have seen this evolve over the last 3 weeks. And essentially what we have been able to do, because we are managing many thousands of live chat engagements on estate agent websites across the country every week, we've been measuring the number of new business inquiries, new leads that have been coming in via live chat from your websites. And the message is, the headline message is, and as if you guys out there in the poll have just said that you are seeing inquiries coming in, we are seeing increasing volumes of inquiries coming in, and actually some of the data is really, really surprising. I'll be just a little bit sort of open and honest as well about this, that when we launched it 3 weeks ago, this is the third set of data that we presented now, I was a little bit nervous over how representative it actually was, because the initial lines we were seeing on the graph were looking too positive, we felt, for the sentiment, to use that word again, that we were hearing out there in the marketplace and hearing obviously through the news media and all the rest of it. But as time has gone on, it's very, very clear that there are people out there who need to move for a variety of reasons. So just very quickly, just to explain this graph that's in front of you, what we did to make sense of the data was we looked at all of the leads that we were capturing on behalf of estate agents going all the way back to the 1st of January last year, so January 2019, so not quite a year and a half ago. And for the 62 weeks before the lockdown occurred on the 23rd of March, we then measured what we termed to be the average number of leads coming through for each of the different types of profile. And then we plotted week on week the variance against that weekly average. So you can see through the left-hand side of the graph, gradually sort of slowing market as we got closer to the general election, which kind of reflected sort of Brexit uncertainty and political uncertainty and all the shenanigans that were going on there. Tenants, of course, peaking in the middle of the last year. And then we saw the election dip, which also coincided, of course, with the seasonal dip as well. December was often pretty quiet. The Boris bounce after Christmas in January, you could see immediately after that first dip, things kind of flattening down and gently dipping down, but then suddenly, middle of March, we started to see serious declines in intent, in sentiment, in people thinking things were possible, as there was all of the, if you remember back, this it feels like a long time ago now, but you remember back to will they, won't they impose a lockdown or not? And especially in that last week before lockdown, the lack of clarity coming from the government meant that there was all kinds of knee-jerking reactions beginning to take place in different types of businesses. That reflected through into sentiment from customers, and we saw a massive drop in new inquiries coming in. Now, the good news is since that point, so if we take the orange line, which is tenants there, you can see now new tenant inquiries are now at their highest level for this entire period. So that's a significant thing, and they crossed back into positive territory 3 weeks ago, and that growth, that exponential growth, has continued. Now, there are a number of reasons to why that may be, but it's just a simple fact that a tenant, a renter, is more likely to need to move more frequently than a homeowner. So it could well be people coming to the end of their agreement. It could be that they're concerned about affordability, or maybe need to downsize, or a whole range of different things. But there really is an awful lot of demand there. The red line, for those of you in sales, is very important. That's your vendors. And the vendors, while they're still basically 25% below the pre-COVID lockdown average in terms of new vendor inquiries, we've seen an increase from the low point of being down at 30, the figures right here, the low point down to sort of 36%, something like that, of the pre-COVID average. Now rising in the last week another 16% or so. So that's another significant growth in inquiries. Buyers have also moved into positive territory, so at about 105% of the total now. And this is particularly important as well, because if people have a need to move, and as estate agents, you know this better than anyone. They have a need to move, and so over the last year and a half or so, it's not been a free-flowing market in any way, shape, or form that you would like it to be. There have been various breaks and problems associated with it, politically or economically. So now we're at the biggest crisis of all, and some people will be getting something and saying, we can't really wait any longer. We've now got to do something about it. Plus the fact that there is a sort of concertina period of several weeks now, 5 weeks or so, of lockdown where things have just not been possible. So that demand is like a cork in a bottle, and it's pushing up against trying to get out. Now, it's really important to sort of say that it's all very well having sentiments and having people that want to do things, that feel they need to move, but of course the caveat is, and the safety valve on that cork on the bottle is, that it's not possible yet to do a lot of the things that people want to do. It's against government guidance. It might even be illegal in some cases, and certainly against the spirit of protecting the NHS and the lockdown and trying to slow the contagion of this horrible virus. So there's still that disconnect between what people want to do, what they can do, but the message is very, very clear, is that they are ready to do it when they can, as soon as they can. So throwing things forward through this data, and I think next week, and we'll do this every week, this set of data, and as we look further forward, what's going to be particularly interesting is whether the demand starts to settle down a little bit. And are we going through a little peak of people just testing and nudging and seeing if things are going to be possible, or is this uptick in desired activity going to continue? For agents, the opportunity is, of course, to work with that sentiment. People are expressing a sentiment which shows that they are thinking about moving. So help them manage their expectations. Don't give them false hope, certainly, but help them manage expectations. I'll give another quick example here. We also work with the British Association of Movers and members of that organisation through the country. And a lot of removal businesses, as indeed have with some estate agents, have just closed their doors waiting for the lockdown to lift, and then they'll come back out again afterwards. But the more active ones are actually out there thinking, okay, so we think that the lockdown will start to ease by the middle of May, so we're going to start taking provisional bookings for removals from the 12th of May onward. And what's interesting about that is that, of course, they need to be able to manage the expectations of people, but they're expecting that once things do become more fluid again, that demand of people needing to move is going to come washing into the market, and they're going to be busy as anything. And those people that are too late coming into the market are not going to be able to get a slot to actually move. So by creating priority lists, by doing video surveys of belongings and properties so they can estimate volumes and all of that kind of stuff, give reasonable quotes, they are starting to build a pipeline of new business that will come out post-lockdown, subject to all the restrictions of safety and personal protective equipment and all of that kind of stuff that will need to be considered. And for estate agents, the message is very similar. Build your pipeline, keep building your pipeline, keep building your pipeline. It's a long game. Keep building it, keep building it, keep building it. People are there and they want to be talked to, and they're looking for guidance and looking for support. Be their friend.
And it's some great stuff in there. And again, the analysis. I mean, if you have a look at that, certainly for tenants, as you can see there, as you say, over that whole time period, that whole graph, you'll see more tenant activity than at any point, you know, over the last 16 months. And again, obviously, if we look at the fact that, you know, you guys have had to furlough staff and in servicing some of that incoming, you know, that's absolutely nuts. And again, it's a challenge, of course, which you guys will, of course, I'm sure you know, you're rising to that. But yeah, Andy, thanks for the explanation there. Some great stuff. And again, as Andy said, we'll be previewing this and reviewing this, of course, on these daily webinars going forward and seeing where those trends go. But, you know, genuinely really cool, interesting stuff there. So big thanks to Andy again. So, okay, another question here, Adam. So are you saying that customers are out there for agents, but they're willing to do business with them today?
Yes, I think that's true. But we've got to be careful, obviously, because I've mentioned it a couple of times, and in the Yomdel world, where we are managing live chat engagements with a real human operator and a customer on behalf of an agent on their website, that you must be really, really honest and open in terms of the management of expectation. If you manage expectations effectively, you can tell people something is not possible, but you will help them know when it is possible. Don't make promises that you can't keep. Focus on what is possible and how to get people to the best position to be able to go forward. So, for example, talking about the removals piece just now, and I think this is a salient point and a good example really for many of the agents out there. One of our estate agency clients has said, we have some people who have to make what the government would term to be essential moves. They have an essential category around it. They can't find a removals business to be able to move them. Wow. Because they're not answering their phones. Their staff are working remotely, but they can't transfer calls from one member of staff to another. They're just not given. They're very traditional business, and how they're set up. So as an agent, if you're out there and you say, right, okay, well, beyond actually being able to help you with your move itself and the whole process of doing this, we've also gone the extra mile, and we've been researching the market, and we found the best removal companies out there who will actually also be able to help you physically do the move, because if you can't do that at the end of the process, there's no point in starting.
Good point.
And so then you're building a second tier of commitment, if you like, from the customer. So you have to be also honest with yourself that not everything that you do right now is going to result in revenue. This is a long game, and it's better to have some revenue a bit later on than to have nothing at all the way through. And if we all recognise that, all of us as business, in our own businesses, Yomdel is the same as everyone else. We need to find ways to very cleverly manage our way out of the challenges that we face and get our businesses into the best possible shape, which are focused on customer needs, so that when things do become a little bit better, the customer will recognise that, and their decision will be made for them.
It's a great point you made, Andy, about the whole process. I mean, we've talked about it on the webinars before, about obviously building that pipeline. But as you say, you can get all the way to the end, but if no one can actually move your stuff, and you've got all these big heavy wardrobes, like tables and what have you, then as you say with the example which you used there, you're going to be pretty stuck, and you're going to have a lot of congested and constipated, for want of a better word, pipelines there. So will do for you guys that are on the webinars, and again, keep it saying, I will speak to the guys at Yomdel, and I will look at some of the trends again with removals. If you say, don't get me wrong, a lot of people will do it for themselves. I certainly have in the past, but again, a really interesting point that this is absolutely a long game. We have to plan very well, much in advance for that. So,
just to finish on that does mean maintaining regular contact with your customers. And the example that I would use is that two examples. One that we all know that water will flow downhill and it will find its way through. So if you tell someone to go away and come back in a month's time, you've lost them. So don't ever say that. And secondly, a plundered quote, which I use all the time, but it's highly relevant, which is that people may forget what you say, but they will never forget how you make them feel. So make them feel good. Find ways to make them feel good, and then they'll be with you.
Yeah, great advice. No, absolutely correct. I mean, I genuinely fear, and I've said it before on the webinars, of some of the agents and companies that have literally gone to sleep over this time period. It's going to be quite a scary ride from when the lockdown is lifted. So you guys are now love a poll. So this is the second poll of the afternoon. Do you feel you can handle all customer inquiries at this time? And again, be honest, don't worry. The answers don't get posted anywhere. I'm not going to share them with the media. So do you feel you can handle all customer inquiries at this time? Is there a yes, I'm doing everything possible, yes, but only to put them on hold until lockdown over, or I don't have the capacity or resource to at the moment? And again, be honest in the room. Again, this won't be shared anywhere. Please be aware. There's an encouraging trend in the answers so far, which is good news. Okay. All right. I've given it 5 seconds just so all you guys can vote using the poll button. Interesting stuff. Okie dokie. Thank you again, all you guys, for voting there. We've got 83% Andy saying yes, I'm doing everything possible. That's brilliant to hear. It really is. And again, if you look at some of the volumes of leads that Yomdel are offering over there, each stage to customers, I mean, that is it's really good to hear. 17% are yes, but I'm putting on hold until lockdown is over. So again, thank you for you guys and voting so we can share that with the room today. So Andy, I know you're not Nostradamus, but I'm not sure this. Do you see a major change in the way agents will do business with customers into the future?
Yes, is the short answer. Of course, there are certain elements within the process of buying and selling or leasing property that are tied in by regulation and law and the rest of it. But in terms of how customers choose to interact with agents, how customers choose to manage their own move, and how customers choose to make their decisions over how they move, unquestionably that behavior already was changing significantly in recent years with the advent of digital. And we all have one of these. These are great empowering tools. But to a large extent, businesses and agents in particular were not geared up to be able to support all the different things that customers would actually quite like to do if they thought it was possible. And so naturally they didn't try to do them. But of course now, under lockdown, as you know, I've never been on so many Zoom calls and video calls. Once people get over the challenge of seeing their own face on the screen and knowing that the other side can see them as well on a virtual call, suddenly it becomes second nature. We're hearing all kinds of stories about how businesses are trying to adapt to meet new and emerged customer requirements, but also requirements that have emerged simply because it's not possible to do things the other way. And a lot of these things are going to stick. So the idea that suddenly, and you know, the other thing to consider is, of course, that it's not just going to be suddenly the lockdown is going to disappear and everything will be back to normal. It's not. The high street is going to be a very, very, very different place. We're hearing of so many brands that are just going to be disappearing forever, restaurants and pubs that are going to be closed. It's not going to be a nice place, I don't think. But from a business point of view, this has been an opportunity for agents to think about how they can do things differently, and to review and to revise their cost base, and to look at how they can more efficiently deal with more customers in a better way, essentially, to get better results. I think there'll be a lot more virtual work done. You know, if we assume that a house buyer goes and sees, I don't know, 6 or more properties or 8 properties before they actually make a decision to buy, maybe 5 of those viewings can be done virtually. You know, maybe they can all be done virtually before they go and see the short list of 3. Because most buyers, when they go into a house, they know almost as soon as they step across the threshold that it's not for them. And if you can take some of that out, you start to drive efficiency into the business. Also, building consistency in your operations. If you're a multi-branch business, look at consolidating functions rather than having functions repeated, replicated in each individual branch. That's quite an inefficient way of doing things. There are lots of ways that things will change, I think, but one truism is that now is not the time to procrastinate over whether something needs to change. Now is the time to decide what needs to change and then to go and change it. I've been at Yomdel been really amazed by how fast some organizations, some companies are now making decisions, whereas in the past it was always impossible for them to make a decision. Needs must.
Yeah, absolutely right. It's if you say a lot of agents have simply got to adapt. You know, we don't know how long this lockdown is going to be on for. Of course, it will be. Sounds like it be lifted in phases from what Boris was saying earlier in the week. But again, you know, it doesn't look like that. You know, us guys in the property industry, certainly not today anyway. You know, there'll probably be the breaking news later on today that these savings are going back on May the 11th just to spike me, of course. But again, Andy, you know, we've seen it as well. You know, agencies that really have, you know, pushed decisions and processes forward a lot faster than they would have hoped to in some ways as well. So no, it's interesting what's around the corner. It really is. So what sort of things are you thinking of? What agents could be using more commonly moving forward? Of course, you've mentioned, you know, the virtual tours as well. You know, what do you think, you know, other than the virtual tours, what do you think that might look like? What other things do you think people and agents will be engaging in doing? And, you know, again, their results and go, actually, do you know what? I've been repeating that process over the last 10, 20 years. And do you know what? There's a better way of doing it.
Yeah, I mean, let's just think about where we all are. So right now, everyone on this webinar, I would venture, is probably sitting at home. No one's in the office. And when the offices do reopen or can be reopened, the likelihood is that we're still going to have to maintain some kind of form of social distancing. Because the fact that there's no immunity in society to this virus is not going to go away. So that means that quite possibly how offices are staffed, if offices even exist, will be questions that businesses need to ask. So remote working, so the ability for people to be effectively equipped to work remotely when it's needed. We're hearing obviously lots of announcements about different virtual tools that are now available or soon to be launched. In the case of the Briefing Market, a new virtual tool. This is fantastic. I had an advanced view of that yesterday. I thought absolutely brilliant. But it's the thing to remember, I think, is not that businesses have to convince customers to do things in a different way. The customers are naturally moving towards doing things in a different way. And the businesses that are going to profit from that are going to be those that recognize how they can change things to make it right for the customers that they're dealing with. Because, as I said at the very beginning of this webinar, from the customer's perspective, irrespective of what kind of need they have, they will always be the most important person. There's no one more important than them. So flip it around and think about them, and think about how they can best be supported through arm's length and virtual tools where necessary to save the time of travel and the cost and expense of travel to get to certain places, to give people a really good experience and a really good service. Just because something is online, digital, or delivered through digital channels, doesn't mean to say it needs to be substandard. Traditional values of service, and product, and all the rest of it that so many agents really pride themselves on can still be very effectively delivered through virtual channels. The question is making sure you understand which bit goes where and how it all slots together.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I was speaking with an agent, obviously to remain nameless, of course, and a bit of a fear really about what's going on. And as you say, we love the personal touch, but as you say, it will be that you have to adapt. Just because it's digital doesn't mean that it doesn't work. I'm sure a lot of you guys on the webinar this afternoon do daily FaceTime calls with the with grandchildren, nieces, nephews. I certainly do. Of course, it doesn't take away from giving them a hug, of course, at the end of the weekend. But again, as you say, this is a business environment whereby we've got to keep those wheels turning. If we don't, then we're going to struggle to survive, basically. So, okay, so Andy, quick question. So, what about virtual views? Do you think customers will really ever buy a house from a video?
I think as things currently stand, that's probably a big ask. I don't doubt it will happen once in a while for a variety of reasons. But generally, someone buying a house or they're buying a home. If they're buying a home, then probably not. They need to be able to go in there and feel it. But in terms of virtual viewings, the story this week of one of our agents who got an 83-year-old man vendor to host a 3-way virtual viewing, live streaming. And he went around with his iPad and had the agent on there as well, and the prospective buyer, and it went off really well. It is possible to do these things. Now, we're hearing lots of stories of lettings that are being done virtually, that tenants are show a far greater propensity to accept a property based on a virtual viewing, which doesn't really surprise because they're going in for a relatively short term often. On the buying front, I don't know. It's the same question in some other industries as well. Would you buy a car without actually having seen it and sat in it? If you're spending a lot of money on something, you probably want to feel it and smell it and drive it and all of that kind of stuff. And it's the same with a house. But will it get to the point where the car industry right now is looking at virtual sales for the first time? And with a drop off at the house from a flat bed with one driver bringing it and that kind of stuff. So there isn't the opportunity to test drive and these things. Who knows how things are going to play out in the next year? My view is, at least for the next year, we're going to see social distancing in place to one degree or another.
Yeah.
We're going to have to find ways. It may well be that people will buy virtually because it's not possible to do it another way. Or, as a vendor, again, thinking about the customer, they don't feel safe having a stranger come into their house.
Yeah, we've certainly, again, the letting agents I've been speaking with, it was on a webinar actually this morning with David Cox, and they had seen that 60% of the letting agents they'd been speaking with that had issues with tenants saying, no, I'm not having a gas safety certificate done, we're not having an electrical safety certificate done. And again, David actually said, he was quite surprised it was that low actually. So yeah, you know, people, you know, we're going to have to adapt.
We will adapt.
Yeah, it's really, and again, you know, nobody knows the future, but again, I think we can see, we've seen a lot of more meat being put on the bones of some of these things now, and of course, Andy and the team at Yomdel are seeing how people are adapting. Again, look, remember that graph of all the people that, you know, are still getting in contact with agents. If they don't get an answer from you guys there, and again, you know, you risk the possibility they go elsewhere. You know, that's the fear, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you.
Okay, so the key benefits. You might well have answered this before, Andy, if I'm honest with you. What do you think the key benefits are for agents in engaging with this? Again, I think, as you say, might have been answering in your last piece just there, to be honest.
Well, I think there's a couple of things just to add to this. If you think about the journey online, either via the website or via the portals, and what a buyer sees, you know, on the portals, there's no video, there's just some photos. Yeah, well, they've got better over time, and on websites, you're seeing slightly more immersive experiences sometimes. But virtual viewings open up a whole range of possibilities. You know, for Yomdel ourselves, you know, we you know, we'll book appointments for people to have viewings and that kind of stuff. But actually, there's nothing to suggest why we shouldn't actually also be able to host an initial virtual viewing. And walking someone through at 2 o'clock in the morning, they come online, they see a property. Well, that looks really nice. Well, would you like to have a look around now and have an escorted virtual light touch viewing? Are you still interested in this property? Yes, absolutely, right. Okay, so then they go through that way. So there are so many ways that you could actually enhance the idea of making viewings more accessible to more people, without the palaver of having to drive and arrange the keys and get someone there and get the access to the property and all of that kind of stuff. Again, the actual physical thing will still need to be done, but it's much better to get a fully pre-qualified buyer in across the threshold whose business is there to be lost than speculatively fishing around hoping that one of them is going to bite.
Yeah. I think the efficiencies of agents, so even you just talking there, it felt quite painful, didn't it? You know, I had to source the keys, is the tenant going to be there, blah, 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 blah. That's a lot of time and resource. Again, you know, I think the good agents will come out of this and their efficiencies will be, you know, again, it might be another 12, 18 months time until we know that, of course, but I think it's going to be really interesting to see what's going to happen with this. So, question 3 for you guys in the room. Have you made changes in lockdown to now offer virtual services? So have you offered them before? We've implemented it easily to say no, or no, we are not in a position to do this.
It's a really good question. I'm intrigued by this one.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. Really. We'll give it 10 seconds just so we can get as many people in your room as possible voting. Interesting stuff, I have to say. Andy can't see this already, by the way. So
no, I can't. No, I'm really in the dark.
So okay, thank you all for voting. Interesting again. 29% we offered these before lockdown. 61% again adapting to change. We've implemented new online services. 10% not in a position to do this currently. So again, you know, it's really encouraging to hear the room of what's happening. Again, you know, you guys, you know, we live this property industry. You know, we all live in this bubble, which is the property industry. So again, thank you guys for voting on that. Now, a bit of a killer question for you here, Andy, but if you were an agent today, would you be changing your business now? And do you believe that there is enough evidence it is worth the investment in doing that? If there's like a $64,000 question, I apologise. What do you think?
Well, let's just put it into context. A lot of agents put them in a room anytime over the last few years, and they would be the traditional high street guys would be having a pop at purple bricks and the online says online versus traditional,
Yep.
and for them the two worlds were so far apart. I've always said actually, the two worlds are totally intertwined, and the idea that you can be online and a traditional agent is completely complementary. It absolutely, it's about utilizing the channels that the customer. Where is the customer these days? They are not walking. They weren't. They're definitely not now. But they weren't walking down the high street and popping into one estate agent after another as they used to. They would be going online and being far more selective about how they approach things and all the rest of it. So, as I mentioned earlier, if I haven't already changed my business in terms of thinking about digital, and it's really interesting, the poll just then, about 29% had been doing some form of virtual activity previously. Now it's too late to wonder whether or not you need to do these things. The answer to the question is now there and right staring you in the face, because you are unable to run your business in the way that you used to currently. And the public are going to come out of this expecting to do things in different ways, because they've got used to doing them this way and that way. And some of these, not everything, but some of these things are going to stick. The idea of having a Zoom video call is not going to be beyond the pale in order to to talk to a customer. In fact, they might even prefer that to a telephone call if it's an important decision that they're looking to actually make, and it's saving them a 50-mile round trip or something. But it's also just a note of caution. It's very easy to make mistakes at this time because it's not one size that fits all, and it's really important that you look at all of your processes. You look at where you can optimize and drive efficiency into them, but that you don't get blindsided by lots of shiny things that you think are going to be great, which will end up being really expensive, and which ultimately will do you a disservice, and you can end up blowing a whole load of money and not really getting any benefit from it at all. So it's very important that looking at who your partners are going to be, what the platforms you're going to use are, how those things synchronize together and amplify the results. So you look at the workflow, you look at the customer journey, you look at how you can bring the two of them together in order to then maximize the results going through. And that means looking for guidance and support from your peers, from suppliers that you work with, people that you trust ultimately, finding out what's working, but then also if you do these things, making sure that you use them effectively, because there's no point investing in stuff if you don't use it.
So you're right. No, it's a really good point. I think I was talking last week about this in, I'll be selfish and talk about brief your market for a minute. But again, we can do that on the. I didn't know that. Again, as Andy said, talk to your suppliers. There's probably little things they didn't really know about. On the Lettings webinar yesterday, it's quite an obvious one, really. If you're looking for generating income from tenants and maybe doing, product swaps, i.e., utilities. Silverlake, who owns Zoopla. So again, do talk to your suppliers. This isn't just about brief your market about Yomdel. It's time to get fit, really, and the fit is well. I've seen some really genuine encouraging signs, and agents who are speaking to me about things that I actually didn't really expect actually as well. And again, these are sometimes the more traditional agents that come to me going, well, actually, we can actually. So it's going to be an interesting ride. Okay, so final question for you guys. This is an interesting one. We've got the video with Jade coming up, by the way. That's just after this. So, do you believe the market will change and virtual services will become a new normal? You got a simple yes or no? Well, I'm not sure yet. Who's going to sit on the fence? Vote here, actually. I could be biased. Thank you again all for voting, by the way. It's great you guys get involved, so thank you ever so much. Okay. Will the virtual services become the new normal? I'll give it 10 seconds so you guys can get voting. Okay, very interesting. Okie dokie. We got 65% yes, a majority in the room, Andy. 13 no. Okay. 23%. I'm not sure yet. Sensible lot. Yeah, again, me and Andy don't know what's going on. We can obviously see trends obviously happening over these last few weeks. We don't know where we'll be in 6 weeks' time. We're just obviously reporting back to you what we're seeing at the moment and what's likely to happen. But interesting, the majority of the room do believe it will become the new normal.
I think it will. There's probably it's been one of the interesting things I've seen in recent weeks is agents looking to educate themselves in new ways of doing things, trying to understand how to do video, for example, how to edit video, or how to put subtitles onto captions onto video. And they're really testing the boundaries of their own comfort zone here. It's pushing because they recognise that they think, well, I should have done it before, but now let's really get to grips with it. And some of them are absolutely, and look at some of the videos that have been created, they're absolutely brilliant. It's only a small part, but video beyond the virtual stuff is actually a really powerful marketing tool in itself as well.
Very much. I mean, this is
more accessible than it used to be.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time I've done a webinar to Cameron again. The guys who regularly come on, you'll know that as well. So I do exist. I'm not just a voice. So yeah, I mean, I actually did my first video last night. Excuse me, as well. And again, it was quite real. It was on my own. It was quite nerve-wracking actually. It was quite odd. But again, I do see people putting themselves out of the comfort zone. And again, I'm sure in the coming weeks or months, you guys do that. It will be a good thing for you guys. So, okay. So, Andy, where does Yomdel fit into all of this then? So, what are you guys doing with that? What have you done over lockdown?
Yeah. It's a continuation really of what we've been doing for the last sort of 5.5 years. As adoption has grown, people are less likely to walk off the street into an office. They're less likely to pick up the telephone. They're far less tolerant of sending in an email and not knowing when they're going to get a reply. And so live chat has grown massively as a channel that people want to communicate through. And also they want to communicate when it suits them. So we're not talking 9 to 5 here. We're talking 24 hours a day. Peak times run up till 10 o'clock weekdays normally, and that's not been a huge change since the lockdown actually. What's really important though, if you're choosing if you're choosing how to do live chat, is to understand that you could do it yourself, very easy to put on the website, but at the same time it's a really demanding channel because your customer wants a response immediately. They don't want delays. They don't want there to be no one available. They want to hear someone coming straight back to them straight away. And if you can do that, and you find a partner who can help you do that well, which is what we would recommend, whether it's Yomdel or someone else, then you will be able to maximize the conversion of visitors to your website. And at the end of the day, there's a lot of discussion out there about the relevance of portals and being less dependent on portals in the future. And this is a really big opportunity, is to invest some of that money maybe in your own digital marketing activities, in your own website, your social channels, your email marketing, all of these different things that you could be doing, where live chat can be bolted in so that actually someone can speak with a real person via text-based chat immediately when it suits them. You could even put live chat into autoresponders going back to people from portal leads, for example. So, if you want to find out whether that buyer coming in via Rightmove is actually a disguised vendor, there's no better way than to speak to them immediately about that. So live chats is rapidly growing and continues to rapidly grow as a channel. I believed in it so strongly 6 years ago. I started the whole company doing it, and they've been proven right, fortunately. I think it's another of these things that ultimately going forward, you think about yourself as a consumer and your expectations. How many of you on this call will use live chat on the website, but your own businesses don't provide it? Think about your own behavior. And then think about how you can offer that same experience to your customers. Here at Yomdel, we're advocates and passionate about this kind of stuff, so we're very happy to give advice as well, not just to sell our service, but to actually give advice and pointers towards sort of best practice and how to optimize it, because it's not It shouldn't be something that's just cheapened in the corner there. It should be one of your primary drivers of engagement with potential customers. It should be one of your primary drivers of conversion on your website and primary drivers of new business.
It's interesting, Andy, you say there about how you as a customer react. I mean, I've got to contact Clydesdale Bank, who I have a mortgage with, about potentially about a mortgage holiday. I've lost a tenant, not literally lost a tenant, not like a set of car keys, but it could be that if I don't have a tenant in the property because of the COVID-19 crisis, I might look at taking a payment hold on the mortgage. I've been warned by several people, don't call the bank. Again, send an email. I mean, anyone who sends an email to Ryanair, was that I read this morning, 12 months to come back if you want a refund.
Yeah, lucky if you get that, yeah.
Oh, well, exactly, if you get it, exactly. So again, I use live chat. I use it, I think I've said before, when a Vodafone, Sky, or what have you. Again, this is the norm. It's genuinely. So, I do absolutely agree with what Andy said there. So I'm just going to double check, see if there's any questions that have come in. I'm going to go into Jade's video there. I apologise, we're running slightly over. It's been some really, really good stuff, so thank you.
Sorry.
No, Andy, don't apologise at all. So, Andy, we've got one here from Alex Chung. Do we need someone full-time staff to man live chat?
No, you don't, because that's what we do for you. So Yomdel's service is essentially providing the people, the expertise, the execution of the service itself, so our clients can then focus on taking the leads that we generate and turning those into business.
Perfect, lovely. This one you may or may not want to answer. If so, an expensive investment. Sorry,
the only form of expensive investment is an expense that isn't an investment, that it ends up being a cost to you. So we're very fortunate that we get good insight into the data of the successes from our clients, and I can tell you with a high degree of confidence that the majority of our estate agency clients have a return on investment from the Yomdel service that goes into thousands of %.
Wow, fantastic. Okay. I think I can probably answer on your behalf. Another one from Alex there. Does it link to mobile devices?
Yes.
From live chat, it does. That's great. Good
well,
one.
60% or so of live chats take place on a mobile device these days, and actually, it's a good point here that if you are thinking about your website and your web real estate, so to speak, when you're scoping it out, it should be built first for mobile and not the other way around. So everything should be focused on mobile first.
Okay, so good point here from Martin, actually. I quite like this one. Alex says thank you, Andy. Virtual chat, I hate it when you wait for a reply. And every bot I have tried is too slow. Are you doing anything to speed things up? And again, Andy, when I first met with you, virtually, of course, at the moment anyway, of course. What do you guys do to speed things up? How long does it usually take?
Sorry, I couldn't hear the whole question. Was that specifically about Yomdel or in general?
It was in general, and Marty actually mentioned Yomdel as well. So what's your usual SLA?
We measure speed of response in micro moments. So I kind of joke that people's attention span these days is shorter than a goldfish. We're thinking really in 15-second segments here. So we measure the average speed to answer. Now, of course, there's always the exception that sometimes one takes a bit longer than others, but on average, across all of our clients, across all of our thousands of estate agents and all the other businesses that we work with, our live chat operators will respond within 15 seconds around the clock, 24 hours a day. That extends to about 30 seconds once you're inside a chat, once you're going, because the operator will have to sometimes find information, get the right detail to send back to the customer. But you're absolutely right that delay equates to abandonment and also equates to a poor customer experience. And what you want to do is to give people no reason to abandon and no reason to think they've had a poor experience. Just give them what they need as fast as you possibly can, make it professional. Importantly, make it sure it's grammatically correct, that the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed and all the rest of it, because I joke that no one will ever complain about a correctly used apostrophe, but there's always a chance there'll be one that would complain if it wasn't correctly used. Don't give them that reason to complain.
Very true. That's really true. Okay, I think that's it from the room. Again, I apologise that we are running slightly over here, but again, it's been some really cool stuff. So I've seen a couple of people. I probably have to nip off for 4 or 5 minutes. I'm going to show Jade's video now from Jacob Steele, but I'm again extend a huge thank you to Andy and the team at Yomdel, who have been absolutely fantastic. This new partnership with Brief Your Market. And Andy, thank you for your time in answering the questions.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Dave. I've really enjoyed it, and I hope it's been helpful for people. We're always ready to support and offer advice and anything else that we can do to anyone that wants to know, you know. So we're a very kind of open type of organisation, so we're here to help.
Perfect, that's great. Okay, so yeah, if you want to just all guys get to your screens. So this is an agent's view on sentiment. I'll run this again tomorrow because we've got a slightly over today. But this is very, very, very kindly done by Jake Pope at Jacob Steele. So again, it's always good, as Andy said, to hear from your peers. So, okay, let's get going with the video from Jade.
Hi, I'm Jade from Jacob Steele Estate Agents on the South Coast. For those of you who don't know who we are, we've got 6 offices that span the South Coast. We cover sales, lettings, commercial and new homes. So with regards to business trends, I think estate agents everywhere are often afraid to share the levels of business that they've been doing. It's obviously a very competitive industry, but I think in times like this, we have to work together. So I'm just going to share a couple of statistics that I've been looking at over the last week, personal to our business, that actually reflect the same sort of trends that Yomdel's sentiment tracker have been showing. So in a nutshell, inquiry levels are up. In both sales and lettings, which are our core sectors, inquiry levels are definitely climbing. Our tenant inquiries are up on weeks 1 and 2 by 366%, which is massive. So in our opinion, tenants have definitely decided, yeah, okay, this isn't going to last forever. I need to move. I want to move. Let's go. Landlords as well. Landlords have definitely started to think, perhaps, you know, my current agent isn't dealing with this very well. I want to move. And we've seen quite a large increase in appraisals being booked with landlords, virtual, of course. And sales, similar sort of thing. I mean, the increase isn't quite as vast as our lettings side of the business, but new inquiries are up by 36%, which is great, really positive. Appraisals are up by 60%. And we are getting instructions from those appointments, which is great. You know, people are making decisions. They are deciding that actually, I wanted to move before COVID-19. It's not going to last forever. I may as well get started. I do think that as much as estate agents have had to adapt to this new way of working and virtual appointments, virtual viewings, valuations, so on, I think the entire property market has adapted to working that way. So buyers that are genuinely serious are out there, I say out there, sat at home, virtually viewing properties. Tenants that know they want to move are sat at home, virtually viewing properties and making inquiries. And it's really interesting to see. And I think there's a lot of, you know, questions in the air about, will this become the new norm for estate agents? You know, will it kind of be a way of vetting buyers and tenants in a way? There's so much you can do virtually. There's you know, open houses, virtual open houses, to sort of fish out those buyers that are the most interested. It's just, the options are endless, and I don't think any of us would have considered really these sorts of techniques into selling and letting unless we hadn't been pushed. So we've had that push, the market's had that push, people are getting used to it, and it's going well. But yeah, it will be good to get back in our offices and maintain that level of actual person-to-person contact again. So fingers crossed lockdown won't last too much longer, but you know, until it's over, stay safe, stay well, and if you need anything else, let me know.
Okay, Dave?
Sorry about it, everybody. Go to webinar froze on me then. That was a bit of a panic minute. Okay. Fantastic. That was scary. Okay, again, huge thank you for Jane for doing that. I'll show that again tomorrow and probably Friday as well in the webinar. So I know a few people have to nick up probably for 4 o'clock meetings. So yeah, coming up tomorrow, we've got a fantastic Tony Picarillo from Avrillo talking about protection and movement of your sales pipeline. And then I forgive me for this. We've got a special guest as well on Friday, which I can't confirm just yet. I will be able to confirm some new guests as well for next week, obviously along with the guys normally at Yomdel. So again, a huge thank you to you guys for getting involved, for registering, for attending today. Thanks for voting the polls. It is genuinely appreciated. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow at the usual time of 3 o'clock. So take care of yourself all. Have a great night, and I'll see you all soon. Take care. Thank you.
Very much, everyone. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.